Jeff Goodman of Stadium Sports. I think Jeff knows this part of basketball. Frankly, Jeff knows the game as well as anybody, but this part in particular, I happen to regard you as an expert, Jeff. So tell me, let me start with this. Is this draft any good? Are there any good players in this draft?
I mean, at the top, it sucks. It's really not good. I mean, like, you're going to hear ESPN try to, obviously they have the rights tonight, so they're not going to talk about it. But the top of the draft, the kid who might go number one, and there's two French guys, obviously, at the top. One is Zachary Rissachet. And, a nice player, but probably, he's a 3-and-D guy that you're not going to build your franchise around or anything like it. In an ordinary year, the number one pick right now goes somewhere in that 8 to 12 range. I mean, we're talking about Donovan Clingan, who I love as a kid. Like one of my favorite kids, and he's come so far in 2 years at UConn, and he's great defensively, but he can't really score over you right now in the post Mazz other than, as a lob threat, which anybody can score over you. But, yeah, I mean, it's just not a very good draft at the top. Now, that doesn't mean there's not decent depth. That's where it's similar to what it is in the past. But, again, that's not saying much for number 30. Now, again, a couple of years ago, listen, Desmond Bane went 30. He's a hell of a player right now, a hell of a shooter. So you can get lucky. And the one area where I will say Brad Stevens has an advantage over most is every college coach, they don't BS Brad when he calls them. When he calls them and he says, hey, what do you think of this player? A lot of these college coaches are going to BS the NBA guys if they don't know him well. But everybody has respect for Brad. They're not going to lead them astray, anything like that. So, I think you can get a rotation big, a veteran, Deron Holmes from Dayton, a Khalil Ware from Indiana that can give you a few minutes and maybe he can develop into again, I don't think these guys are going to be starters down the road, but they could give you, 15, 18 minutes in a few years, maybe give you a few minutes this year. But my guess is Brad's going to wait, see what's there, see if anybody slips, and if he doesn't love somebody, he's going to trade out of that spot.
Okay, so again, just to give an idea on position, because with all due respect, Jeff, when you start throwing some of the names out there, most people don't even know who the hell the guys are.
Yeah.
So you talk about the big guy, big guy in Indiana.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you who the hell that is. I've never seen him play. I have no idea.
Yeah.
But do you think they're going to go for a center, somebody with size?
Yeah, I would think you probably do, unless, again, somebody's there that you see the potential with down the road, right? Khalil Ware is a 6'11", long, fairly skilled kid who was like a top 10 recruit coming out of high school, went to Oregon. The knock on him is he doesn't love it. He just doesn't love the game. He goes to Indiana, and he has a pretty good year individually, but the team sucked. So... again, he's a roll of the dice. Deron Holmes has been awesome at Dayton for his career, and he expanded his game. Another big, not as big as Ware, but 6'10", and then you got a kid like a Dembona coming out of UCLA. He's been there for 2 years. He's just big, athletic, strong. Can't really score in the post, but could give you a guy that's big, strong, tough, can rebound, will fight you. So, I actually think Dembona makes a lot of sense at 30. I don't think a lot of people are talking about him, but he kind of fits what they need, right? Just a guy who's going to throw his body around, who's going to play tough, who's going to be able to come in and give you, 8-10 minutes if he needs to, and fight you in there and rebound, and because they don't need scoring out of that spot. I mean, it'd be great to get it, but they don't need it.
Right, Jeff, and I'm probably somewhere in between you guys. Obviously, I don't watch as much college basketball as you do, but, unlike Tony and Mike, I do recognize it as a sport, and I am familiar with some of these guys, like Ware and Bona.
Yeah.
And it makes all the sense in the world. You can't play Al Horford too much. You're not going to have Porzingis at the start of the season at least. So can one of these guys, can Bona, Ware, or one of these guys, are they better than Luke Cornett? Are they better options than those kinds of guys? Xavier Tillman, can one of these
Probably
guys
not.
step in
Probably
and not
not,
even be that,
to be honest.
that level? Okay.
I would say no today. I would say Xavier Tillman's far ahead of those guys today. Far ahead. So that's where I think Brad's going to have a decision, and ultimately he's going to say to himself, you know what? The hell with this. I'm going to trade this first-round pick. I'm going to trade next year's or the year after's, and I'm going to go try to get a veteran. that can help me now, because that's really what they need. Let's face it. Like, these guys aren't going to do anything for the Boston Celtics. You're going to have to, like, hit it, and you just don't hit it with the 30th pick very often, no matter how good Brad is. So if I'm Brad Stevens, I'm saying to myself, unless there's somebody there at 30 that I love, which isn't going to be the case, I'm trading out of that, and I'm going to either go try to get more draft capital to be able to trade later, or go trade these picks now and go try to get a veteran who can help you now and be a good piece.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought this up, because Brian Robb, Mass Live, had a report a short time ago saying the Celtics are shopping that 30th pick. So if they did go ahead with that, and after you said, look, there's actually some decent depth in what is looked at as a bad draft class, is it just as simple as it's ultimately a bad pick and a bad draft class, so what the hell, let's just trade it?
And next year's pretty good. Like, people, you're going to hear everybody say, oh, this is a great, great draft next year. It's got Cooper Flagg at the top. Like, he's a kid from Maine who's going to Duke. He's awesome. But, like, it's still not, like, overpoweringly good. So if I'm Brad, and everybody kind of likes down the road, right? They look at the draft today and they're I don't love it. So everybody kind of likes a year from now, okay, what's it going to be? Let me go stockpile picks. I mean, we've seen what Sam Presti's done with that over the years, even what the Knicks did for a while till last night. So I think that's the play here. And I think, like, listen, Brad's smarter than all of us combined. He is. I mean, he's shown it now. Not only as a coach, what he did at Butler and even with the Celtics, for the most part, overachieving per his talent level up until the very end, right? But, like, what he's done as a GM, again, is remarkable and something that I didn't really envision, even having known Brad for 20 years. I just didn't know if he'd be able to pull this off. I almost thought he was, like, too nice to be able to rip people off in trades. But, man, he's killed it. He's killed it in the trades. And, again, he can evaluate, and he's got a different – because he was a coach down there, he's also got a different way of trying to evaluate and be able to get information than all these other GMs for the most part.
So, Jeff, I'll tell you, the way I have put it to people, just to try to carry on that point, is that if you were to say to me who is a better judge of talent, Danny Ainge or Brad Stevens, I would say in the NBA, I think it's Danny Ainge. I think Danny Ainge, Danny Ainge can look at guys in the league and say this guy, or even guys who are prospects, and say this guy can play in the league, this guy can't. But if you were to ask me how do the pieces on a team fit together, who is better, I would tell you Stevens is better at putting a roster together than Ainge is. Does that, I don't know if you agree with that or not. That's sort of my assessment of that.
Yeah, he's also more adaptable, right? I mean, Brad's a little bit younger. He's more of an analytics guy, although Danny did come a long way analytics-wise, but he's more of an eye test guy than Brad is. And again, I just think Brad had all his bases covered. It's just the way it worked out, right? The way it worked out for him coming from college, where most guys fail, to going to be a head coach. He's got a major advantage over everybody. I keep saying it to people, but it's true. Like, and he's super smart, so he knows the numbers part of it too. Like, this guy is just like built perfectly with the road he took to be an NBA general manager.
So, Jeff, before we let you go, let me ask you this one last thing, because it's been a while since I've spoken with you. And I think one of the last times I spoke with you, or that maybe even we spoke with you on this show, and frankly, it might have been on the television show that Mike does at night, and we played the sound of it. But my recollection was that, a few years ago, you had concerns about the redundancy between Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, that maybe their games were too much alike and they didn't play well enough together. Am I right in saying that?
No, it wasn't the redundancy. I just didn't think Jaylen Brown was good enough, to be honest. It was straight out. Like, I just wasn't sold on Jaylen Brown. And a year ago, like, he wasn't good enough. He couldn't dribble. He couldn't pass. But, man, that guy has worked his butt off over the last year to improve the two areas that I felt like were completely holding him back.
Okay, so this is what I was just going to ask you. Were you surprised to see that they elevated to this level?
Yes and no, because I thought they brought two adults in the room that helped them not only mature in Derek White and Drew Holiday, but understand the value of team winning, not worrying about your own personal stats. Like, everybody asks me now, is this team going to be different next year? Because now everybody's going to look for their own. They've won one. And I'm like, no, like, Derek White doesn't care. Like, he's the best teammate in the world. Drew Holiday's already done it. And now, listen, Jaylen Brown's won, and NBA Finals MVP and a title. Jason Tatum, you can tell, like, he had been hearing it. I talked to him for a couple hours before the season started this year, and like and I've known him forever, so you could hear it in his voice of like, I care about my numbers, but like, I've been crucified all off season. I need to win to show people that I'm a winning player and I can get this kind of monkey off my back. So, listen, to me, it was about fit, like you said, for Brad. He got the right pieces, and they matured, and I think part of it was on their own, just getting older and maturing and going through the losing, and part of it was bringing in Derek White and Drew Holiday.
Hey, real quick, Jeff, before we let you go, I just curious your thoughts on Zach Edey and where you think he might fit.
Yeah.
First of all, in the draft, but where you think he might fit NBA-wise.
Man, he has gotten, I mean, this is a kid that's only played organized basketball for about 7 years. He grew up playing hockey and baseball. Imagine him as a pitcher. And he didn't think he was good enough when he got to Purdue. Nobody did. So his progression's been incredible. You know, here's the difference. He ate Klingon up last year, guys, in the national title game. He ate him for lunch. And that's where I keep saying to myself, like, Donovan Klingon is the number 3 pick and Zach Edey is 15. Zach Edey can score. He's not as good defensively, but he can score a little bit. It's just amazing the way the game has gone, where we talk about the bigs and not having as much importance. Now, again, obviously Jokic and Embiid have changed that, but they're different. Those are like versatile bigs that can do everything. Donovan Klingon, like I said, can't really score, and we're talking about him as being like a top 5 pick. It just shows, again, the lack of power at the top of this draft that Donovan Klingon in the ordinary year is going 10, 12, maybe even 15. Zach Edey's probably going 20 to 30, and everybody's moving up like 8, 10 spots.
So, Jeff, we're going to let you go, but can I just tell you that Paul said Zach Edey, and I'm like, I had to look it up. I'm like, oh, that's that big kid from Purdue. Can I just tell you, the big guys that you're talking about, I think they're both stiffs. I think they're complete, total stiffs, but I'll leave you with that. Thank you for joining us. I appreciate your help.
All right.
Yeah,
thanks, guys.
Thanks,
All right, we'll see you
Thanks,
later.
Jeff.
This is going to be fun now, Jeff. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. Again, that kid at UConn, Klingon, is that his name?
Yeah, no, Jeff is right about the.
He's a stiff, Paul.
He has no offense.
He's a stiff.
I just said he's right. I don't know why you're arguing with me.
He's a stiff. That Edey kid, he's a stiff, too.
Yeah, I kind of think that. And I
Anyway.
think we could nitpick the national championship game. I think Edey got a lot of plastic points at the end of that game when it was long since decided, but whatever.
If you like that clip, check out more videos from Felger and Mazz here. For more Celtics analysis and opinion, hit this playlist. And for all the latest from the Sports Hub, download the app at 985thesportshub.com.